Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast, part of the BetRivers Network. We come to you as we get ready to start another year of March Madness, the NCAA Tournament. And for those of you who are fans, and today I think most people are, even if you're a very casual college basketball fan, you know what? You have your bracket, you're in your pools. I mean, that's part of the bracket has become part of Americana. It's become part of offices all over America. In the afternoon, people rooting for upsets. This team's in, this team's out. The first couple of games, everyone's waiting till their bracket gets ripped. And, it'll get ripped at some point. But the point is when you're going to rip your bracket because you're not going to be the one to put together the great bracket. No one's ever put together the perfect bracket. Warren Buffett used to offer money. There's never been one. The odds on doing it are infinitesimal. I mean, you got a very good chance of not getting out of the afternoon, no less the entire day. Some, a couple of things here. Number one, this has been a big part of my life for a very, very long time. Um, I worked on my first tournament 44 years ago. Um, CBS hired me because of the NCAA tournament. They didn't do college basketball. They had just gotten back in to college football with a light schedule. Now they wanted to get into college football. The guy in charge of college basketball and college football was a guy named Kevin O'Malley. The first year, their first college game they ever had was Carolina Pitt. They didn't even have great games, but they got big into college sports, and they got the NCAA tournament. And they brought me in because I had done a lot of work and writing, and I had some success with certain tournaments that they had noticed and some things I had done in magazines and different things. They brought me in to kind of be editorial guy or an information guy for the entire network. I developed a very close relationship with Brent Musburger, obviously, and then years later Jim Nance. It led to me finally going on the air there years later, and then obviously FAN came in the middle of that, and so that's the whole thing. But it all started with the NCAA tournament, and I was so blessed, and CBS was so blessed in those early years, and this really launched the tournament. The tournament took off and went to a different place. Really happened the year before it came to CBS with the great couple of minutes that NBC had with St. Joseph's beating DePaul and U.S. Reed making a bomb of a shot, and all three upsets happening 1, 2, 3 right in a row on television, right in front of everybody. And they had a wild tournament. And obviously, the Bird Magic game kind of took it to a different level a few years before it came to CBS. And then it started to really cement that. But then we were blessed with these amazing tournaments. My first final ever, and the first one CBS had, was the greatest game I've ever seen in person in my life, which was Georgetown, North Carolina, the Michael Jordan shot. Okay, the brilliant game with so many stars, you know, a freshman named Jordan, a freshman named Ewing, Sleepy Floyd, James Worthy, all these great players for both teams. The next year, we go to Albuquerque. I spent a week in Albuquerque. That Monday afternoon, I'm walking with Jim Valvano, who I knew very well. And he was kind of like, had on Sunday after their upset win on their win on Saturday, had captivated the entire media. And he said, I won't shoot the ball till Tuesday and blah, blah, blah. And then when he ended the press conference, we had a special sit down with him with CBS. And then on Monday morning, I wound up walking with him somewhere. And he said to me, we're going to run with him. And I'm like, are you out of here? I mean, are you absolutely out of your mind? This was, Phi Slamma Jamma. They had just played on Saturday the game that was going to usher in the new world of basketball. Played above the rim, Louisville, the Doctors of Duncan, Phi Slamma Jamma with the great Olajuwon, who had then come to the fore, and Clyde Drexler, and all those great players. And what people forget about that game is After a great first half, Houston takes over the game and then pulls the ball out, and Valvano used fouling to get back into the game and wound up getting it, getting it on a dunk late and winning the game. Never should have happened. I mean, Houston should have run away and hid. That game, though, was one of the all-time upsets. Then the next year, the 3rd year, we're blessed with Olajuwon Ewing in Seattle, where Ewing and John Thompson get their championship with their great defensive team. Freddie Brown, best defensive guard I've ever seen. Um, uh, excuse me, not Freddie Brown. Gene Smith, not Freddie Brown. Excuse me. Freddie Brown was good, but Gene Smith was the greatest defensive guard I ever saw. Um, uh, Michael Graham, who was gone soon after, but played such a big role in that game. But Olajuwon Ewing, now Olajuwon was physically better than Ewing, but Ewing got the championship. And then from there, all the different, Never Nervous Purvis and what he did as a freshman in Dallas and all the way down the line. So, I was so lucky to be part of all those up close and right there for all those great games and, so many of the great people that I had grown up watching. I always, as a ritual, because CBS would have production meetings for a couple of days and bring everybody in, and talk to them about how they wanted to do certain things and everything, and everyone had to attend the meetings and everything, and every year it was a ritual that I would go out with Al McGuire and Billy Packer, and here I am. I used to watch these guys on TV, and now I'm going out with them, and we became good friends, and, you know, Al was hysterical. I mean, there was only one Al McGuire. Like, Al McGuire would be in the production meeting, and they'd say to him, "Al," in those days, you got VCRs, so it was a VCR world, and you got cassettes, right? So you'd say you had a BA, a guy who's an assistant, who broadcast assistant, who does all the grunt work. So, "Al, tell them what games you want on tape, and they'll send them to your house." And he'd be like, "Why?" "Well, you look at the VCRs before the games." "Oh, I never look at the game before the games." "What do you mean?" "Oh, no." "Well, what did you do when you coached?" "Well, Hank handled all that stuff. I just coached the game." And that was true. And Al would go into the game, and they'd say, "Well, Al will give you a VCR." He didn't know what a VCR was. He didn't know what a cassette was. He said, I'm not even sure I have a TV. I don't watch TV." I mean, this was Al McGuire. He was out there. He was a space cadet before there were space cadets. He was unbelievable, and he was funny as heck. So was Billy. I mean, Billy idolized Al. But, Al would go into the game, and within 2 minutes, he'd say, "If they don't double 50, they're losing the game." And that's how instinctive he was. I mean, he didn't have to know anything about the guy. He just looked at the pieces on the floor, and he was such a gifted coach. He would just say, "Do this, do this, do this. This guy do this guy do this," and that's how he worked. That's really how he worked. And Billy took care of the particulars, and everyone loved them. Um, they became such when they worked together, which they always should have worked together. When they did, they were such a great, threesome with, Dick Enberg. But all those years, Nancy and I used to get there and watch all the games, and we didn't come on the air at 11:30 at night at CBS because ESPN had the early games. It was a different world in those days. We just had one game on Thursday, one game on Friday at 11:30, then we had all the games on Saturday and Sunday. And we'd be sitting in a broadcast center in a room, and Nancy and I'd be there by ourselves, and people would come in to see a certain game. Dan Rather would come in to see Georgetown. Someone who was in the building would come in. One time, Winfield Brindley came in to see Utah. I mean, it was, it was just these were the years, and it was so much fun during those years. So I've been a part of this for a very, very long time. It's changed dramatically, like everything else has. But this tournament has still, especially this tournament is these 4 days. Next week, people are ready for opening day. They're on to different things. They no longer have their bracket. It's all ripped up. They no longer really care unless their alma mater's in it. And they might watch a regional. They might watch a regional final. The ratings are not unbelievable until the Final Four, which is one of the great days in sports. And I always tell people they should try to get to one of those in their life because it really is a special day. because the anticipation in the building before the 2 games, when there's 4 teams still alive, is really special. But the bracket, these first 4 days, upsets, March Madness, all the chaos, last-second shots, that's what it's about. Now, the tournament has been hampered, and basketball insiders know this. The NIL has stripped, not only has it caused chaos, but it has changed what's going on in the dynamics of the tournament. The mid-majors have been completely obliterated and completely beat up and almost neutered, because if you, have a guy now who's a freshman at a mid-major school, in the old days, you uncovered a gem, he'd be there 3 more years, you'd build around him, and by the time you were a junior or senior, you had an experienced team that would wreak havoc in the NCAA tournament. Now those mid-majors are younger, and the big schools are older because they're bringing in juniors and seniors and guys with extra years of eligibility who've already graduated, and they're playing those guys from other schools. You got guys changing schools, obviously, every year now. These guys are hired guns. Well, they all go to the big schools, and they have obviously lessened the upsets because the mid-majors aren't as strong. You can see that in this year, they adjusted the numbers for the 1, 2, and 3 seeds in their first games. Some of these numbers are record highs. I'll go through them in a minute. They're record highs, and take that into account if you like to wager. They have put a little handicap, a little tariff, if you want. There's a word that people like to use now, on these teams. I'll give you an example. Illinois is a 3 seed. They are a 25.5-point favorite in the first round against Penn. Now, the Ivy usually shows up in these tournaments and plays okay. Historically, they're pretty good to wager on in the first round. They've pulled upsets in the old Princeton days, but they usually play okay, and they shoot the ball okay, and they're smart, as we know, or as, someone said, I think it was Raftery, who always, can be colorful, and is still doing this at his age, so God bless him, who said, "Hey, I don't want you talking any grief to these guys because you're gonna be working for them in a couple of years," when they were playing in Ivy League school, which is, hey, it's true. I mean, that's where these guys are headed. So, but they are a 3 seed, a 25.5-point favorite. That's a number you would have seen on a 1 seed a couple of years ago. Now the ones are up around 30. Duke's a little less because they got injuries. But if you look, a couple of them broke 30 points on their first round games. 30 points. It's a lot of points. I mean, you win by 25 points, you're not coming close to covering the point spread. And the 2s and the 3s, the numbers are all elevated. Plus, everyone loves the 5-12 upset. Hey, I think these are the strongest 5s I've seen in years. Vanderbilt, they're not a 5. St. John's, they're not a 5. Wisconsin, they're not a 5. Texas Tech, they're a 5 because they've been banged up. They lost their best player. They're well coached. They got some players, but losing the top, and they're a 5. They could have trouble in their game. The other 3, I wouldn't pick an upset in any one of those games. And I know St. John's, we'll get to tomorrow because they're playing 7 o'clock tomorrow night. I got time after the game tonight, and I'll be on after the games are completed tonight. So you can get that late at night. If you went to sleep, you can get it tomorrow morning. I'll preview St. John's after the game tonight. And obviously, Northern Iowa is one of those kind of upset schools. The coach has been there a long time. This is not a vintage Northern Iowa team. They don't shoot it great from the line. They are not athletic, but they want to play really slow. They're going to pack it in and make St. John's shoot jump shots, and they're going to try and take away the pace of the game so that St. John's doesn't get any fast break baskets. Now, let me tell you, the key is going to be in that game, not only pace, but whether or not they turn the ball over. If they don't turn the ball over, okay, If they don't turn the ball over, they can hang in and maybe the points spread plays in if they shoot the ball well. And I don't know if they're gonna be athletic enough to get good shots in the half court because St. John's plays really great defense. I don't see them beating St. John's. I think if they stay within 6 or 8, they did a great job. St. John's is way too athletic, and if they turn them over, that game will be a rout. But let's get to that tomorrow because they're not playing until tomorrow night. Now, let me give you a couple of themes here as we start. Number 1, I gave you the mid-major weakness. You gotta watch that. Number 2, the reason why and you've heard a lot of complaining out of, let's be honest, St. John's, Villanova, Calipari likes to complain about everything, about them packing and having to travel long distances to the West. Problem is 10 teams in the NCAA tournament out of the 68 teams were from west of Kansas. 10. There were only 4 California teams in the tournament. They had to import teams. In San Diego, you have 3 East Coast teams playing there, including St. John's and Villanova. So I understand that it ticked off you St. John's fans who were hoping the game would be close and you could get to a game. You're gonna have to wait next week, hope they make the regional, hope they beat Kansas. And Kansas is gonna have a lot more fans at the game than St. John's will. But remember, there's other reasons why that won't be as impactful as you think. But like I said, I'll get to St. John's tonight because they don't play today. Injuries are a big factor. There's a lot of guys hurt. Like Louisville today doesn't have Brown. North Carolina has already lost their best player. That Duke is banged up. That UCLA is banged up. They got guys hurt in the Big Ten last week. Gonzaga has a key guy up front who's hurt. Texas Tech, of course, lost their best player, but they lost him a while ago. There's a lot of guys. Even Michigan lost a backup point, and they haven't played well since he left. That's a big issue. Plus, look for NCAA tournament very rarely has a guy who just comes in and scores a ton of points. The Wally Serbiak guy. The guy who just comes in and, rips off the entire tournament. This year, there is so much individual talent. Guys who are going to make NBA player scouts drool, including the Enigma Peterson at Kansas, a lot of people will tell you, NBA types, that he is the best looking prospect physically that they have seen in 10 years. But he cramps all the time. They've done all kinds of work on him to find out why he keeps cramping and can't play. Kansas plays better statistically without him. It's really impacted them dramatically all year, but he's extremely gifted. You got Acuff, who's come on gangbusters for Arkansas. You got AJ DeBanza, who got a ton of money to go to BYU and put up a huge year. You got Flemings in Houston. You got, Boozer. You got great freshmen. Really, guys who are going to be stars in the NBA for a long time. There's a lot of them. I think you're going to get a lot of games where guys are scoring in the 30s and maybe even 40s, which you don't usually see in the NCAA tournament. I think you're going to get that too. Now, let me run down the updated BetRivers. Somebody just texted me that Howie announced. I knew this for a couple of weeks because I saw Howie down in Florida. But Howie just announced that this will be his last year calling games with the Mets. He's cut back his schedule. I believe he's only doing home games, or maybe just a couple of road games, maybe the Yankees and a couple of close ones. Obviously, he's had some physical. He's okay, but he's had some physical stuff to deal with, and he's doing well, so that's very positive. But he's going to step away after this year, and obviously, he's done a great job calling these games for the Mets. So that was just announced. I mean, he told me that a while ago, but I didn't know when he was going to announce it. Here we go. Now, These are the BetRivers updated just this morning. I got the guys to give me their latest. We called the guys who do this for BetRivers, and we got the latest numbers. I'm going to give you 2 numbers for each game just to give you an idea. I'm going to give you the point spread on the game for today, the 8 games this afternoon, and then this 8 games tonight. Remember, this tournament is basically played in the next 4 days. It's 16 games today, 16 games today, 8 games on Saturday, 8 games on Sunday. You've played 48 games. If you count the playing games, you've played 52 games in the tournament. It's most of the tournament. All that's left are select games that are really for basketball purists. Now, here we go. Tournament starts at 12:15, as it always does. In the early segment, you have 8-9 TCU and Ohio State. Ohio State's 2.5-point favorite. They've played very well down the stretch. Obviously, they've had a guard that's carried them. TCU is a dangerous, well-coached team. It's a good game. They're both moonshots to win it all. Neither one has a shot to win it all. When I break down the teams that can win it all, I have 3 categories. The favorites, Arizona, Michigan, and Duke. Duke is still in there despite the injuries. I don't think Duke will get there without the point guard and the center. They're not going to get the point guard back. They might get the center back. Now, he's not playing now, though. In the second wave, I have 3 more teams. Houston, which is a little different this year, but has been at the top of the charts the last couple of years. Should have won it last year. And they get to play the regional on their court. I'll get to that in a minute. Florida and Iowa State. And then the third wave to me is St. John's, UConn, and Michigan State, who are all in the same region. And I put a couple of, to me, St. John's and Arkansas are flyers. They could lose in the second round, like St. John's did last year. They could lose early, or they could get a big run going and get to a Final Four. Arkansas is talented enough, especially with Acuff. St. John's is playing well enough right now that if they catch Duke with only 6 players, they could wear them down. They could beat them. They'll have a chance to beat them. UConn, I think St. John's right now is better than UConn. I don't like how UConn's finished the season. Michigan State, I think, I would rather St. John's played UConn in the regional final if they could ever get past Duke than play Michigan State. I have more fear of Michigan State. Arkansas. And then the next level would be the Purdue's of the world and the other teams, but I don't consider that next level. I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are my strong teams. Then I have 4 sleepers that I gave you, which I consider St. John's, UConn, Michigan State, and Arkansas secondary teams to win it. I think St. John's can get to a region, can get to a Final Four. I don't think they will win a championship. I don't think they would be able to beat the likes of Houston, Michigan, Arizona, those kind of teams. Now they're going to have to beat Duke, otherwise they're not going anywhere because Duke's going to be staring them in the face unless they get knocked off early. Now, the second game today is Nebraska in a 4:30 game against Troy. I don't know anything about Troy. I'd be the first to tell you. Nebraska has never won an NCAA tournament game. They had a very good year. They shot the ball great early. They did not play well down the stretch. I don't know if Troy can play. If Troy can play, I wouldn't be surprised this is a close game. A lot of pressure on Nebraska. Then comes up Louisville without their best player against South Florida. Dangerous game. Dangerous 6-11 game. South Florida's good. And the coach just turned down Syracuse. Then comes Wisconsin against High Point. Now, everyone likes to pick the upsets in the 5-12. And High Point is a team that guns and won 30 games. If you look since February, Wisconsin has played like one of the top 8 to 10 teams in the country. They have huge upsets. They lost in the Big Ten semis on a last-second shot. They lost to Michigan by 3. They can shoot it with anybody. They are a dangerous team. And then Duke against Siena. Duke's only 27-5. Siena, good for them. Jerry McNamara from Syracuse fame. Um, 27-5. That's a 250 this afternoon. Vandy is a very good 5 getting McNeese State. McNeese State's a good team. We all know that. They're good. They're there a lot. They're dangerous. But to me, Vandy is legit, is a legit team, and they're better than a 5. Michigan State gets North Dakota State. I know very little about North Dakota State. I'd be the first to admit. Have not seen them this year. Don't expect Izzo to get beat in the first round. Michigan State is 50-1 to win it all. If you like a high flyer, that's not a bad wager. And Arkansas gets Hawaii in the buried game. You know, I always talk about the buried game. That's the buried game. Arkansas, also 50-1. If you ask me who I like better, Michigan State or Arkansas to win it, I would say Michigan State. I can see Arkansas pulling off a couple upsets. I don't think they're going to, if they won their first 2 games, they run right into Arizona. I don't think they're beating Arizona. I think Arizona, which has been bad in the tournament with good teams in recent years, I think Arizona's going to have a big tournament and get to a Final Four this year. I think they're that good. They're 30-2. They've played 12 ranked teams. Nobody before, I believe, has ever played 12 ranked teams before the Final Four. And Carolina, which is hurting, is only a 2.5-point favorite against a really slick, quick, good shooting VCU team. VCU, if they hit their threes, can win this game. You saw Miami of Ohio last night. I hope you did. I give the NCAA credit. I thought that was great to put Miami of Ohio in that game, to put them close to home so their fans could fill the place, which they did. So you had a great setting in there. Obviously, it was a road game for an SMU team that finished the season 1-4 after they lost one of their key players. And they came in and they shot threes, shot over 40 of them, and shot the lights out. And they won the game. So good for them. It was and they'll be a great story in the next game. They really will. And you know what? They got a tough opponent, but that'll be a good story. It really will. Now, the night segment starts with Carolina and VCU. Then comes Michigan, a 31.5-point favorite against Howard. I don't care who you're playing. Your team, if they're up 45 at the half, they can blow a 31-point lead if they put this, the bench in, because they're up 45 with 8 minutes left. That's an astronomical line. I mean, 31.5 is a lot in basketball. I mean, Michigan can blow teams out, and early in the year, they blew everybody out. Now, Michigan didn't win the Big Ten, and everyone thought they would. They're 3.5-1 to win it all. The favorite to win it all is Duke at 275. 275-1. So if you bet 100, you get 275. Michigan's the second favorite at 350. The third favorite is Arizona at 375. They're a cut above everybody else. They are a cut above everybody else. That's it. Florida, which I'll get to tomorrow, I'll give you an example just so you get Florida as the fourth one. You see how it jumps. I think Florida is 7-1. Yeah, Florida is 7-1. So you're going from 275 to 350 to 375 to 7-1 to 700. So they don't put Florida in the same class as the big three. The big three have been Arizona, Michigan, and Duke. Those are the big three. Now, the rest of the night schedule tonight, BYU lost a critical player, haven't been the same. 2.5-point favorites over Texas. I would not be surprised Texas wins this game. I like Sean Miller in the tournament. If you haven't seen A.J. Debasa, this is a top 3 pro prospect. He's had a great year. He could easily score 40 points tonight. St. Mary's, always a rugged team. Solid, boring, but rugged. 3.5-point favorite over Texas A&M. Illinois, as I mentioned, tonight at 9:25, a 25.5-point favorite over Penn. Now, Illinois, as you know, has a great freshman who's a prolific scorer. They are a great three-point shooting team. They have size. They can spread you out. They play with a lot of European players. They are a legitimate, dangerous team, but I thought I was gonna like Illinois. There was a point in the season when I thought Illinois was a real sleeper to win the whole thing. I did not like how they finished the season. There were a lot of games I was really disappointed in their performance. And Penn is gonna keep trying. They're gonna keep running their stuff. They got guys who can knock down threes. They will keep fighting to the end. I'm telling you right now, I would take the 25.5 points. You might lose it, but it's a good bet. I don't care. 9 times out of 10, this is a really good bet. 25.5. First of all, it's the highest 3 line, I think people said in the last decade. The guys who follow that stuff, I think they said no 3 has been this kind of favorite in the first round in a long time. None of the other 3s are close to this. I think Gonzaga's 20. They're 25.5 against Penn. And the Ivy League historically has been a good underdog league in the tournament. The 8-9 game, Georgia against St. Louis. I admit, Georgia has bit me in the rear end a couple of times this year. I don't love their team, but they've come up and played well in some games where they've surprised the heck out of me. St. Louis, I love because remember the kid at Indiana State with the glasses who plays center? He is their guy. Okay. I've always been a big fan of his. I've always loved him. Robbie Avila. And he's a good passer. He can knock down a 3. He's kind of not chubby, but he's a husky guy. Really smart basketball player. He wears the big rimmed glasses. He's a fun player to watch. And then Gonzaga against Kennesaw State. I've not seen Kennesaw State. I don't know him from a hole in the wall. Gonzaga's a 21.5-point favorite, but one of their bigs has been banged up. So, again, Gonzaga rarely ever doesn't play well in this round. Very rarely. So, I mean, they're pretty much money in the bank. And then Houston, which is a 2, gets Idaho. I don't see this game as being close. Houston's a 23.5-point favorite, which is steep for a 2. But that league does not do well in the tournament. And I think Houston knows, hey, we beat Idaho, which they will. We beat St. Mary's or Texas A&M, which they will. We're going home. Now, what happened was this. Rice agreed to be the host team in the South region. When they agreed to be the host team in the South region, it opened up Houston to being allowed to be able to play in the South region. This is going to be Houston in Houston. So if you are Illinois, if you are Florida, if you're somebody who creeps through the bracket and you're in a Sweet 16 game against Houston, in the Sweet 16 and the Final 8, you're going to have to beat Houston at home. That's going to be rough. Now, Houston is not the same team they were last year. They're not as good defensively. They don't play ping pong on the backboards as much, but they have a better offensive team, and they have one of these freakishly good freshman guards in Flemings. He is a major, major talent, and they're dangerous, very dangerous. And they could be pretty much anything. Let's be honest. I think they could be. I think they have a good chance to get to the Final Four because I think beating them in their building, even if it's Illinois, now they're going to have a tough road to hoe. If they have to beat Illinois and Florida to get there, that's going to be hard. Those are 2 really great teams, really good teams. But Houston is, as an example, is 10-1 to win it all. That's it, just 10-1. Illinois, as an example, is 22 to 1. Gonzaga is 50 to 1. Uh, Arkansas is 50 to 1. St. John's is 60 to 1. That is a very attractive number. One that if you're a St. John's fan, it's worth throwing a couple of shekels on. Now, I think the better players probably played them to win to get to the Final Four. I don't see them beating all the big teams that'll probably show up in the Final Four, like Michigan and Arizona. Houston could be there too, if not Florida. I mean, those are going to be very hard games for St. John's. They're not as good as those teams. The idea they would beat both of them and win a championship. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I could see St. John's getting through the East, especially with Duke hurt. If Duke wasn't hurt, I wouldn't think St. John's was getting past them. They are banged up, and I think the numbers and the style and the loss of the point guard against the St. John's pressure could be a huge factor in the game. I think they can wear Duke down. I think they can beat them, and I think they could beat UConn. Like I said, I really hope Michigan State's not standing. I'd rather UConn be standing. I know they beat them 2 out of 3, and UConn would be loaded for bear. I don't care. And I know the game's not in the Garden, but I still would like St. John's in that matchup. So 60 to 1 is attractive, very attractive. It's a nice price. Now, UConn's price, I believe, is 28 to 1. Let me look at it. I'm pretty sure it's 28 to 1. UConn is Purdue's 25 to 1, and UConn is 25 to 1. A lot of people like Purdue. I know they just won the Big Ten. I'm not a Purdue fan. Not a Purdue fan. I don't like the way they play. I don't trust them in the big game. I'm not a big Purdue fan. I'm not. So 8 games this afternoon, 8 games tonight. If you're looking for local teams, if you're looking for like St. John's, they're tomorrow night at 7. If you're looking for Hofstra, they are where is Hofstra? Hofstra is they are tomorrow against Alabama at 3:15. Alabama is 11.5-point favorite. You know how Alabama plays. Alabama obviously has got some issues after last week with the arrest. Hofstra's is a good, dangerous mid-major, and they're only an 11 point. They're not disrespected here at 11.5 points. Now, St. John's, as I told you, CBS tomorrow night, 7:10. They are a 10.5-point favorite against Northern Iowa in the 5-12 game. Northern Iowa is going to try and slow it down. They want to play 55 to 60. St. John's wants to play obviously up as high as they can. Now, LIU obviously gets Arizona. Arizona is a 30.5-point favorite. That's tomorrow afternoon at 1:30. Tomorrow afternoon, 1:35, Arizona, 30.5 against LIU. Now, Harrison was telling me about this fins up thing. If you haven't seen this fins up thing, check it out before they play, because I don't know how that's going to play out tomorrow. I don't know how it's going to play out in the arena. I'm sure LIU brought fewer people than St. John's brought. Okay. I'm sure they brought very few people. So I don't know how that's going to play out in that arena where Arizona is going to have 1 million people. But That's supposed to be really something hysterical, so check it out, okay? Anyway, I don't know how it's gonna play out tomorrow. Uh, as far as today, if you consider Siena, who aren't really, locals, I mean, they're in the state, but, that's a long way. They're 27.5 point underdogs to Duke. That game is 2:50 this afternoon. So, we get underway at 12:15. I gave you the favorites for the tournament. Now, what I'm thinking with my bracket. What I went through and I said, I'm not gonna fiddle around. I'm just gonna fill it out game by game, think where the matchups are and go. All right. I have Duke advancing to the Sweet 16. I have St. John's advancing to the Sweet 16, beating Kansas. Now we all know Kansas could be Jekyll and Hyde. Their A game is great. They've had a very bad season, or for them, a very inconsistent season. They have a lot of talent. They're going to have the fans. You got to respect them. I think St. John's can get past them. And then you're dealing with Duke next week. UConn, if UCLA were 100%, I would think that would be a very scary game. UCLA is very banged up from what I understand. So I think UConn wins. They got Furman first, no issue there. Michigan State, Louisville's banged up. I don't see anything that's going to beat Michigan State there. So I think you're looking at a Michigan State UConn game. I have UConn slipping past Michigan State by the slightest of margins. I have St. John's over Duke because Duke's banged up. That's the only reason I'm even considering it. I'm putting St. John's in the Final Four. I don't think I've ever done that before. I don't think they'll win the championship, but I put them in the bracket in the Final Four. I thought, you know what? If I have them going to the Final Eight, why can't I pick them to go to the Final Four? They've beat UConn twice. Who knows what would happen in the fourth game? It would be great to see the fourth game. You'd have a Big East team then in the Final Four. The bottom line is, let's see what happens. Now, the South is a very good region. I think Florida is good but not great. Great big line, great front line, well coached, obviously pedigree. Their guards have been woefully inconsistent. They just lost to Vandy. They're going to see Vandy, I think, again in the Sweet 16. I think Florida survives this time. I have an Illinois-Houston shootout. I think Houston wins. I think Houston beats Florida. I got Houston going to the Final Four. Because what they're going to get in the South as far as home cooking, I got them going to the Final Four. I'm not an Arizona fan. I like to pick against Arizona. I have historically picked against Arizona my whole life. Villanova has a tough game with Utah State. It's a toss-up. I think Villanova, if they're a little banged up also. Whoever survives is going to lose to Arizona. Wisconsin, Arkansas is going to be a classic game. Whoever survives that, I think Arizona will win. I have Purdue on the bottom side. I think that bracket on the bottom side is woefully weak. It's Purdue and Gonzaga. I don't think either one's going to beat Arizona. I think Arizona's going to the Final Four. They've lost 2 games this year. They lost to Kansas. They lost to Texas Tech. They have beat top teams all year. They are loaded. There's nothing they don't have except a history of doing well in this tournament when they get deep. Then you have the Midwest. Listen, everyone I talk to loves Michigan. I'm a little worried about Michigan. I got Michigan, Iowa State in the final. And listen, Michigan's front line is scary. They got 4 major players. No one has as much talent as Michigan unless Arizona does. Even Duke doesn't have as much talent. They play great and Booz is great, but they don't have as much talent as Michigan does. The only team that does it has as much talent as Michigan is maybe Arizona. I don't know what's going on there. This is the game I'm torn on. I think it's a Michigan, Iowa State. I have great respect for Iowa State. They had a little bit of a weird finish. They were a little up and down. They're exceedingly good defensively. I can see them putting the clamps on Michigan. I'm so torn on this game. I'm gonna go with Michigan, but I'm telling you, I'm gonna kick myself because I really I just can't make up my mind, but I have to. So I'm going chalk on the right side, Arizona and Michigan, St. John's and Houston, a 5 and a 2 on the other side. So St. John's, Houston, Arizona, and Michigan in the Final Four. That's where we are. Enjoy. We will be with you after all the games are played tonight. I know that'll be the last game starts at 10:10, so that'll be about midnight. I will preview tomorrow's games. I like a lot more games than I like today as far as individual games. Um, and I will preview St. John's, which, hey, it's St. John's wanting St. John's athleticism, St. John's having a huge edge on the board, St. John's being bigger and more athletic by a mile, St. John's wanting to press them and get the pace up and down, and the other team trying to slow them down, get them to shoot threes, packing everything in. They don't even chase offensive rebounds, so they balance the floor. They don't give up fast break baskets. They want to play at 55 or 60 and see if they can pull off an upset. That's how they play, and they're well coached. They're well coached. The coach does a good job. They've been there for a while. This is not their best team by a long shot. St. John's wins, but a lot of people picking upsets in that game, and I don't buy it. I think St. John's got too much firepower. I think they will have to double team him, and that will hurt them a lot. As long as St. John's doesn't go 0 for 50 from 3, which we know they can have their days, I think they'll be okay. And then it's on to Kansas, which I expect to beat Cal Baptist, although I have to say this, okay? When I haven't seen a team, I tell you, I don't know Cal Baptist from a hole in a wall. I don't know anything about Cal Baptist right now. So, and I don't know if I'll know anything. I just want to let the game unfold and, expect Kansas to win. I can't see Kansas losing to Cal Baptist, though. We'll see you later.